This is Abnormal Entertainment.
2, 3, 4.
Walked into the tunnel just to find the light. Hunted for old demons, looking for a fight. Looked up at the stars, seemed to go forever. There must be a way, it all fits together. Fell into the quicksand, held on to the vines. Never could quite color, stay within the lines. Feels like I have wings, I can fly wherever. This is just a way, it all fits together. Finally saw the world through rose-colored glasses. Gonna share my journey to small and large masses. Give up on my life, no sir, me never. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Garza and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start as usual thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Morris, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. I want to invite everybody to check us out at abnormalentertainment.com, where you can find all the shows on the network. Go check that out. And today I want to get started right away because I feel like we have a really good story. I have Mr. Bob May here with me today. Hello, Bob.
Hello.
How you doing?
Hi, Daniel.
You are a actor, a director, and I'm going to throw out some of the other titles in there because
Go ahead.
You've earned them, man. It's like you've earned. I feel like when you have that, like, so you're actor, singer, director, producer,
yes,
playwright. You're a consultant. All this stuff, and we're going to hear where everything came from eventually. But welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm trying to figure out, because I was trying to figure out on the way over here when I was driving, like how I think I stalked you from somebody.
A little bit. No, you stalked me through, I had started a club, a social club on Meetup for HIV positive men. Yes. And you contacted me through that.
That's right. And then we met.
And then we found out that on Facebook that we knew other people.
Yes. So we knew a couple of actors and a therapist. He's not he's not my therapist. I don't know if he's your therapist.
He's not my therapist.
He's not a therapist. We probably could use a therapist, but that's another story. But yeah, that's how we connected. That's how the connection was.
That's right.
Because you did the meetups, but I never had, every time the meetup was up, I never had a chance to go. And I finally bribed you to come to my show and be on here. And, yeah, we won't tell people what we bribed. So yeah, let's just say it requires a lot of whipped cream and
yes,
and chocolate syrup, which it's my main diet. So. But welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Before we get into the heavy story, all these great titles. I'm an egomaniac. I would be really like, how do you feel about all these accomplishments in your life?
Well, I feel good. I'm still acting. I won't kid you. Physically, I've slowed down. So I'm not doing as much as I used to do, but I'm still acting on a regular basis, and I'm still directing on a regular basis. Producing got really hard for me physically about 2 years ago. And, because it's very stressful. Right. And you wear all the hats. I wear all the hats. And I had just finished a show and ended up in the hospital.
Wow.
And I was in the hospital over New Year's 2 years ago, January. And it was kind of a wake-up call that, I needed to kind of assess what my physical abilities were at that point. So I kind of, over the last 2 years, weaned myself away from producing, and I can say I don't do that anymore, which is not to say that I wouldn't. It would depend on the project.
Yeah.
And then I started, I was working, when I was producing, I was working with various playwrights, and for various reasons, money being one and artistic differences being another, I decided I wasn't able to work with them anymore, so I started writing my own shows and putting them on. And writing was something that I always wanted to do, and never had the guts to do it, and found out, much to my surprise, that it was something I could do, and that I enjoyed doing it, and that I had my own process, and it was fun, and the result was good.
Nice.
And so I kind of fell into that, and so one of the things I'm looking forward to in the future is getting my plays published, my shows published.
I look forward to seeing that.
And putting them together. Putting them together.
Good segue. Thank you. Folks, this was not scripted.
It's on
This was not scripted.
my list of two honeydews.
But,
put the plays together, get them produced.
But this is, I'm going to use that line in future promos because he said it. You know how hard sometimes I tell people, like, can you put it together in there somewhere? And they never say it. And the first time I don't say it, you're like, yeah. Well, let's get started. Bob May, can you tell us how you put it together?
I think, so since you give me the choice of choosing any arbitrary time in my life, there are jokes about me. I remember very, very well. I was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I remember by the time of 5, as they say, if I opened the refrigerator door, I did a bit. I did an hour because the light came on. And I was always showing off. And I was always living in a fantasy world. And I think a lot of that was that I knew that I was somehow different. And I didn't know how I was different. I just knew I didn't quite fit in. And so, like I think a lot of gay people, particularly in the creative arts, but maybe a lot of them, and straight people, I don't know, live in a kind of, actors particularly, live in a kind of fantasy world that they populate themselves. And then the other thing, I was a natural mimic. I was constantly mimicking things. If I saw something or heard something, an accent or a funny voice or something like that, I would mimic it. And this was all just to get attention and to set myself, to give myself something, because I was not an athlete, and I was not, I was bright, but I certainly wasn't anybody's idea of a brain surgeon or anything like that. So, I mean, I fell into acting from a very early time, from the time I was 5. And then I remember very, very distinctly in the 5th grade, I copied out a comic book and turned it into a play about the Civil War.
Wow.
And produced it in my 5th grade class, Me, and I played Abraham Lincoln.
Wow.
And I memorized the Gettysburg Address and all that. And I had the bug at that point. And I didn't get to take acting until I was in junior high. Was the first time I got offered, classes.
Right.
And then I was very lucky because in high school I had a teacher by the name of Marion Tompkins, who was freshly graduated out of UCLA, who taught me, put in my mind the idea of craft. Put in my mind the idea that acting isn't just a fun thing to do. It is a fun thing to do, but that there's a discipline involved in it. And she really, really instilled that in us. And so, of course, I was in every show in high school. I was in every comedy, musical, drama, everything. I even got to play the love interest once. Ooh. I played George Gibbs in Our Town in the 11th grade. I got the girl. I didn't know what to do with her. I was very nervous, and I was very out of place. So, you learn as you go, and so you're constantly realizing, I don't think I'm a leading man. I don't think I can pull that off. I mean, I can if I have to, but I'm much happier being a character actor. I'm much happy being a comedic actor, or even a villain or something really dramatic. And so, I mean, that was kind of my forte, was theater. I was into other things too, journalism and all that kind of stuff, art, English, but drama was my thing. Drama was always what I wanted to do.
Now, before that, it's funny what you say about the leading guy, because I did a movie called Storyteller, and I'm one of the lead. Stories kind of revolves around me a little bit. My wife and I see Ghost. It's about a ghost show, a ghost movie, and there's a scene where I'm comforting her and being kind of like, being obnoxious, like, okay, you're seeing shit, and like, there's no ghost. And I'm supposed to lean in to kiss her. Mm-hmm. Well, number one, this is a little bit of trivia here. I couldn't stand her.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
I didn't. From the moment we met, we just didn't click. And
I was like, isn't that unfortunate?
I'm like, then obviously we're a long time married couple because I can't stand you anymore. And I'm supposed to lean in to kiss her. But instead I grabbed her hands and kissed her hands. And the director was like, can you kiss her in the lips? And I was like, no.
Oh dear, okay.
So that created more conflict. But then she dies in the movie, so I'm like, okay, good.
It was okay.
Yeah, so I'm like, that's a good thing. But yeah, I get that. I was like, I don't know how to be romantic with this woman. Like, I can't stand her. Like, how do straight people do it?
Yeah. I've seen that. I've seen that. I've also seen, of course, people fall in love with each other playing opposite each other.
I told them not to. Don't fall in love with me.
And God knows I've played opposite men that I've fallen in love with. But, I do dinner theater. I do murder mystery comedy dinner theater. I've been doing it for 25 years. And it's a series of 2 or 3 shows that are played in rep. And the casts, there are a lot of us. There's a bunch of actors, and we rotate. And sometimes you're the villain, and sometimes you're the hero, and sometimes you're the detective, and sometimes you're a suspect, and all of this. And I play, one of the characters that I play is the kissing murderer. He kisses everybody in the show, including all the men.
Nice.
And to be honest, some of these people I like very much. And other people, not quite so much.
I'm going to, like, I've been close up with people in acting, and I'm like, anybody have a cert? Like,
oh, well, I carry Altoids around with me at all times.
Like, I'm nervous that I'm gonna have bad breath, so I always carry something to suck on. Well, that sounded worse than it was, but you know what I mean.
I think the nerves. I know, yeah. I think the nerves give you halitosis, so I think it's an important thing to constantly.
So please.
And it's another thing not to eat. Just eat anything garlicky or oniony or anything like that just before you do something like that. It's a real discourtesy to your...
Unless you're playing a character that's a lasagna or a pizza pasta or something like that.
Yeah.
Then maybe you...
Yeah, no, I don't do that. I'm very careful about not eating before the show.
Going back to acting a little bit, being so young, I dabbled more in dancing when I was in grade school. Like, I was a dancer all through grade, junior, and high school. A little bit of acting. I wasn't an only child. My sister's 9 years older, but I always felt like I was an only child. And my parents are immigrants. They really didn't understand school. They had no comprehension of why there was arts in school. Like, what is this going to do for your life? And here we are 30 years later. I wanted to go dance and rehearse and do stuff because there was a structure, there was a discipline, and there was an escape for me, because for those minutes or hours that we were rehearsing or on stage, I was somebody else. I could be somebody else. Was there something like that involved in your acting when you were young?
Oh, I think always. And I did some dancing too. I was never very good at it, and dancing is particularly being in your body, and you get a real sense of your body in space, and you get a real sense of your physicality. I never felt more healthy than when I was doing shows where I was dancing, and that was when I was in my 20s. I did West Side Story. I did Oklahoma, the Dream Ballet, and all of that kind of stuff. And I mean, I was in very good physical. You have to be in tip-top physical shape. But yeah, I'm always one of the things that for me is not to get too heavy, but theater is stepping into another character, is becoming another person, is using parts of yourself to become another person, and that's enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's really enjoyable. It's a real escape. When it's going well, it's a really good escape. When it's not going so well, it's a really horrible experience.
I was in my mid-teens in Mexico, when I was in high school in Mexico, and I joined this independent community theater group, all teenagers, and we did this fantasy play for kids for the summer. My character was gay. I was not out yet. That was a personal challenge. I mean, I played the character really well. I got some good reviews for it, but it was so challenging to disconnect. I don't want to get emotional. I wanted to connect with him so much because he was such a fun character. It was this little bitchy firefly who's gay and just enjoyed being popular, and I couldn't get into him too much without thinking they're going to find out that I'm gay, and I had to work. And the director kept telling me, like, I feel like you're just not connecting enough. Like, you're funny and everything, but you're just not connecting. And I was like, I'm giving it all the best, but deep inside, I knew, like, no, because if I do this really well, you're going to find out I'm gay. And
yeah, in a way, acting is hiding, but it's also revealing. And some of my favorite theater experiences are when I play gay on stage. And I may or may not, depending. I'm thinking of the two times I did the Shadow Box when I was in college, where I played a gay man, a terminally ill gay man with a lover and an ex-wife.
oh,
And then I also did Take Me Out in the early 2000s, which is the show about the gay baseball player. And I played the, I guess you would say, comedic character. I was his, accountant or manager or something, and I was very starstruck over him. And it was you kind of walk the line between, you don't want him to be too much of a caricature, but on the other hand, he is kind of a caricature and stuff like that. And both times it was very well received. The difference is a lot more people knew I was gay when I did Take Me Out than when I did the Shadow Box. And it was a way of getting to try, for me, see how comfortable I could feel being out about that. So I played this character, who was gay, and it was hard, and it was challenging, and it was scary, and I knew I was revealing things, and on the other hand, it was empowering. It's like I'm taking ownership of this now, and I don't really care who knows it, and da 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 da, and I have no problems with it. So it was helpful. Almost everything in my life channels somehow through some performance that I've done or some project that I've taken on. So
agreed. All right, everybody. So we're talking to Bob May, actor, director, all-around entertainer, and we've been talking about just growing up in the arts and what they, like you said at the end, like everything. I believe, this is my belief, that anything that I do creatively, I have to be invested in it emotionally somehow, so that I can give it the best that I possibly can, and get the best from it. Because obviously it's a tool that you're going to carry with you later on, right? Does that make sense? I have all these questions in my head. I don't know where to go. Why don't you just keep going and I'll fill in? So you're coming out of high school, going to college.
Well, I have to say, I'm 68 years old. I've been HIV positive since 1985.
Wow.
So I've been positive half my life. And I became aware that I was positive long before there were any protocols. I became aware that I was positive in 1985. So far as I'm concerned, correct me if I'm wrong, we didn't know what it was called. Right. We didn't know the nature of the virus for a couple of years after that.
Right, because it was created in the beginning.
So, and how I found out that I was positive was I had gone back to college to take film classes and at LA Valley College, and I was running I was the student body vice president, and at the time I was the co-chair of the gay lesbian organization on campus. So again, I was experimenting with being a student leader and being a gay leader. And one of the things that I did was one of my causes was blood donations. And so at the college every semester I would run a blood drive. And so long about early 1985, I did a blood drive. And the only people who were testing for HIV at that time, the only test that existed for HIV was the Red Cross, was testing blood that it was taking. And so I remember that it was it was spring, it was late spring, and I could just come home from a wonderful vacation. I'd been overseas for like more than a month, and I came home and there was this form letter from the Red Cross saying, your blood has tested positive. I think we then called it HTLV3 or something like that was its early name, for antibodies.
Right.
And they said, you should see your doctor. And you'd go to see your doctor and he'd say, at that point, well, other than trying to improve your health to the best of your ability, we have nothing to offer. So it was like a death sentence. It was a death sentence, and it was funny because I was at this very high point in my life. I was making more money than I had ever made before. I was working like crazy. I was in really great physical health and shape. I had a really active social life, and then it just the whole thing just crashed. It went down. And so I have to look back at my life. My life is separated from before 1985, after 1985. Because my initial reaction, until they got me on the HIV trial, on the AZT trial, was, death wish. I started abusing alcohol and drugs and sex and everything. I just had this incredible death wish. And, almost got myself fired from my good job. I was in really, really bad shape. And luckily, I was able to get to a place where I had an epiphany. Oh, again, I was very, very lucky in that I was with Kaiser, and they were doing some of the early trials for AZT. I responded to it extremely well, with no side effects.
Wow.
And it was interesting because there for a period of time, so then I got myself sober, and I got myself, into a 12-step, and I stopped acting out death wish stuff. But then you're left with this sort of like, well, then what the hell do I do now? First I thought I was going to die, so I was getting myself ready to die, and now I'm not going to die. What the hell do I do now? Luckily, I didn't do anything for a long time. I just got myself clean for a very, very long time. And I got myself in good health. And like I say, then I had this period of time when I was on the first couple of regimens where I just thrived. I mean, I had great energy. I had great numbers. My outlook completely changed, and I just started working like crazy in the theater. I was just acting like crazy and working like crazy. And it was funny. I didn't have any negative things. And I did, I have something like 170 credits on my resume of different projects, stage, screen, not so much television, but stage, screen, and acting, directing, and writing and all that kind of stuff. And it was during that period of time of about 10, 15 years when I was coming back from Death Wish that I just thrived. I mean, it was just, and I know in a certain way I would go from one job to the next. I was constantly auditioning and constantly putting my resume out and constantly getting work, and the more you do, the more they want you.
Right.
If you step away for a little while, if you take a break, it's really hard to get back in because it's like, you're who? You did what? When? So in a way, you kind of have to you're kind of compulsive. I got to continue working to keep myself out there, to keep myself in front of people, to keep myself. I was enjoying it, and then I would say, part 3 was when I began. I got into my third or fourth regimen of whatever it is of the cocktail, plus all the assorted pills for all the assorted other things. Diabetes, triglycerides,
yes.
High blood pressure, all the other stuff that you get.
Yeah.
Gradually, I have to say that in my 30s I was great. In my 40s I was very, very productive. In my 50s, I started to slow down. It got hard. Stamina became an issue.
Now, can we go back just a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I'll admit I'm almost there. Because even though we were different times,
Yes.
I was diagnosed in 2000.
Yes.
The stories are still so similar.
Yes.
Just the fear and the not knowing and the insecurities But to answer what we were talking about, I want to make sure that for people listening, because this is part of HIV history, in 1982 is when the word GRID came out.
That's
which
right.
Is gay-related immune deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1984 was the National Cancer Institute gave it, they found out that the HTLV-3 retrovirus was one of the causes of AIDS. They also announced the LAV and it was LAV and HTLV-3, which were the cause of it. So it was right before you were diagnosed that those came out. So GRID had already come and gone a little bit for a few years.
But I think they knew it wasn't gay-related necessarily.
No. And how odd that 30-some years later we still...
Oh, the stigma's still
have
there.
To fight that. When I was diagnosed in 2000, we kind of come away from the AZT for several years. I forget the name of the pill that we would take that they eventually took off the market too, but I had several friends that died from kidney and liver problems because it was just so toxic too, which is one of the things about AZT. Would it be too hard to ask, was there any survivor's guilt? Were you involved in it enough that you saw other people pass?
I was in a group called Positive Peers, which was run out of the Orange County Gay Lesbian Center, which was then in Garden Grove. It was a weekly support group, and it was very, very, very helpful. And this was, I think, even before I was started on the trials for AZT. So this was really my lifeline. This is what I had, was this group of about somewhere between a dozen and 20 men and one woman who, all we really had was the awareness that we were HIV positive and the lack of information that was there. It was odd because I walked in the room and there were two people in there I already knew. One, a director and a theater teacher, who I had met several years before, and then a guy from college, And long story short, in about a year, everybody except me and the director died in that group. And I was particularly close to my friend from college. And I wouldn't say I was a caretaker, but I was with him a lot and went through the whole end process with him. And then the guy that was the director lost his partner during that period of time, and I sort of supported him through that. So I stopped going to groups because everybody died. And that was in, that was in like the early 90s, or late 80s, early 90s. And I remember the guy and he and I are still best friends. He's 70, I'm 68, the director. And we work together on a lot of projects and stuff like that. And we've stayed really good friends. We're best friends. And I've lost my thread. We're best friends. He lost his partner. I stopped, there was no point in going to groups because everybody was going to die. And he and I are the two that have said, oh, I remember what I was going to say. He was also on the AZT trial, and he threw up constantly. Oh. I mean, he had a horrible reaction to it. He had a horrible, and they finally found a drug to put him on that he didn't have such a horrible reaction. Everybody was different, knock on wood. I thrived on AZT. I mean, I did really, really, really well. And my friend Kenny from college, who was in that group, who died during that year, said, you're going to do all right, because you're responding well. He didn't respond well to any of the early medications. A lot of these guys didn't respond to the early medications. And I don't know why I'm so lucky. I don't know that I feel awful guilt. I just feel, what happened to all those guys? Where are they? Because there were so many of them that went so fast. And some of them were such beautiful men and such beautiful physical specimens. And there's one guy I'm thinking of in particular. He was a Hawaiian guy. Beautiful physique. He had that long, black, flowing hair and all that. Sweet, 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 sweet man. Well, he was into holistic cures and stuff. He would not take any of the antiretrovirals. And he went very fast. And he wasted. Mm-hmm. He became like something you see in a film about famine. And he just shrank. And it was a scary time. It was a very scary time. But I got out of it through theater. I mean, eventually.
Talking about that, I've been through since cancer in 2015. The way that I handle auditions or roles that require a little bit more emotion into it, it's easier for me to go there really quick and just like. I become a blubbering mess in the last couple of years. Everything makes me cry. I can't.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh.
No. It is funny because I'd probably make some joke right now, and I'll probably introduce some joke into it. But right now, I'm really working to keep it together because I don't think not that I haven't. It's very rare for me to be able to sit with somebody who's such a long-term survivor and then realize that the fears and anxieties and traumas that you were going through in the 80s, like 15 years later, I was going through them in the 2000s. And mainly because also some of my friends are not around anymore. And I've often stopped and wondered, like, I don't feel guilty because I spiritually I know that we all have a journey, and their journey just came to an end, And the way to honor them is to just keep going and don't look back. Just keep going. 'Cause if you look back, you'll break down too. Kind of like turning into salt. Like you gotta keep going. And I think that's why my friends that know me well are like, you're such a workaholic. You're always working on something. I'm like, because I've been given so many chances to keep living that I just can't. I can't fathom sitting on the couch and not do anything. Does that make sense?
It does, and I feel like I was there. I think that all that activity is in one way a fulfillment and in another way an escape.
Yes.
And I think that, now that I've started having, I don't know how many other people my age who've been positive for as long as I have you may have spoken to, but they're now learning that that either the disease or the medicine or the combination of the two, more and more long-term survivors are having heart issues.
Yes.
And that's what I had when I went in the hospital. It presented as a respiratory failure. I was in the hospital 2 weeks. They treated me for pneumonia. I knew I didn't have pneumonia. I didn't have a fever or anything like that. And so finally they discovered I had a heart murmur. And finally they just came to the conclusion that, well, this is one more aspect of the progress of the disease, which is that, I have aortic stenosis, I have a heart murmur. You can live a very long and fulfilling life with this disease, with this condition. And as I say, I did some of my best work, 10 years, 15, 20 years into the disease and the progress of the disease. And I think it goes through changes. I'm physically not strong anymore. I just don't have the strength. I have a lot of wasting. I have muscle wasting. I have heart issues. So this is, to me, nature's way of saying you need to slow down a little bit. For one thing, I'm very careful. I'm very picky about what projects I want to do. It has to be something I really want to do, because I know that I'm going to, at some point, I'm going to have some sort of physical problem. Just, during the course of a 8 to 4 week process, at some point I'm going to get sick. And at some point my stress is going to manifest itself in my lumbar area. And I'm going to get sciatica, hot pain in my spine. So I know all that going into every project that I do, is that the trade-off for whatever good things are coming out of this project is I'm going to pay in some physical way. And so consequently you start to you slow down, you pick projects very carefully, something that you think you can do it well, and you don't think you're going to have to pay too high of a physical price.
Yeah.
You're not going to have to go to the hospital after or near the end of the project, or God forbid in the middle of the project. So I must say I'm a lot more. I'm doing more journaling now. I'm doing more things that I can do at home. I'm directing less shows. I used to direct a new show every couple of months at least, and now I'm directing. Last year I directed twice, and I got sick at the end of the project that I directed, but it was very well received, and I was very gratified by the piece and so forth and so on. So I have to admit that I've gone through phases, and that I'm in a new phase now, and it has to do with sort of slowing down. And quite frankly, I don't know how much longer I can do this. You know what I mean? It's day to day. It's not like I'm suffering day to day, but things come up. And, now, I have a part-time job. I'm a lunch monitor at a high school. It's 2.5 hours, Monday through Friday. They feed me.
So are you like the...
I'm the old guy. I'm like the old guy that wanders around going, pick up your trash, watch your language.
So a little above cafeteria lady.
Put your phone away. You spend most... don't cut in line. Go to the back of the line.
Still directing.
So you're, and a lot of the kids, it's very fun to be around kids. And these kids it's a 4-year school. These kids are 9, 10, 11, and 12. And the difference between 9th graders and 12th graders is astonishing. It's the difference between adults and babies. Mm. I mean, because there's tiny little babies, and then there's great big basketball players. And I mean, huge difference. And then a huge difference in the maturity. And it's fun. It's interesting to see. It's nice to get back in contact with young people. And, I go to all their plays, and I support all and I go to all their basketball games and their football games and all that kind of stuff. And that gives my day a structure. Otherwise I would sleep all day. But now I get up at 8 in the morning, I take my shower, I go do my little 2.5 hour job, I do my errands, it gets me out, and it gives me a structure for my day. And, and then I have a long list of projects that I'm just constantly knocking them off my to-do list.
I think that's a good segue, because you mentioned a new phase in your life. Before we continue on that part, there's a part in my show, which is now, where my guest offers some words of wisdom to my So, Bob May, what words of wisdom do you have?
Are we ready? Are we rolling?
Go for it.
Well, I think that, you need to find something about which you're passionate. And I think that you need to then dedicate yourself to it. And I think, in the theater particularly, you never know what job's going to come along. And you never know, unless it's a vanity piece that you're paying for the whole thing yourself for the greater glory of you. You never know what's going to be offered. The concept is to be ready. It's just to be ready. Constantly keep yourself ready. And then it's just to go with the flow and live it day by day. And not take things too seriously. It's so easy to take things seriously. Case in point. I don't know about you. I live with roommates. I've always lived with roommates. Like Bob Fosse said, I'd rent my shoes if I could. I really am averse to responsibility. I am not a person who ever wanted to have a child. Too much responsibility. And there was a period of time when I have had partners, and, it was long before same-sex marriage, so, we didn't have any kind of glue to bind us together. But, I've been in, relationships that lasted 5 years and stuff like that. But then you get to a certain point in your life where, for one thing, even those relationships had their ups and downs, and God knows they did. Way, way up and way, way down. You remember the good parts much more than you remember the bad parts. And after you've tried a few times, I have no wisdom about relationships. None. Other than you get to a certain point in your life where you don't want one anymore. Because it isn't so much that you don't want one, it's you don't have the energy. It takes so much energy. It takes so much energy to be in a relationship. Now, so the analogous to that is I have roommates. And we're all kind of, 40, 60, 70-year-old people. Very set in our ways. Very set in our ways. And I'm thinking particularly of one. All of my roommates have idiosyncrasies, but I'm thinking particularly of this one person. And we're very good friends, but we're roommates. I mean, we live together because the rent is cheaper to do it that way. And we didn't like each other at first, and over time we got to know each other and like each other and stuff. But he does things just on a daily basis. He loves to turn the lights on and leave them on.
Yeah.
He'll walk into a room, switch the lights on, and leave.
Without
And go to bed. Or something.
No need to just to turn
No,
on.
no.
Okay.
He loves to open the front door and just leave it open and walk. He loves. I don't know if it's because he's from the Midwest and that's what they do. He loves to cook, but he never cleans the counter. Ever. 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 We all talk about, we told him, when you're going to clean the counter. But the thing is, if you wanted to get ticked off about these little things, you could. I clean the counter myself. I turn off the light.
All right.
I close the door. He turns the light back on. I turn the light back off. Light on, off, on, off. If you want to, you could get very invested in what a pain in the ass these behaviors are.
Right.
But you sort of get to the point with people where you just go, you know what? They're not going to change. They're just not going to change. And as a director, you see this because you will give some actors notes, and they will take 75 to 80% of your notes. But there'll be these certain things that no matter how many times you give them the note, like it'll be like a pronunciation note. You don't say tomato, you say tomato. Well, they won't.
Yeah.
They won't. They will not take the change.
Because my character would say it that way.
Well, maybe so. But after about the third time, I guess I could throw a fit, but who does that help? And, you just get to the conclusion that people are who they are. They're going to do certain things their way. It's going to irritate you. Let it go. Just let it go. Life is easier. So my words of wisdom are, find something you're passionate about, pursue it as a craft, be ready when the phone call comes. I'll tell you one other thing. And I think it's in keeping with the fact that actors are so full of imagination. And a good actor, I'm not saying that I am a good actor, but you have to be self-aware. You have to be self-aware. When I was a kid, or when I was in college, and when I was right out of college, example, I did Guys and Dolls. I did a tour of Guys and Dolls, and I played Nathan Detroit, which is the Nathan Lane role, and it was the Frank Sinatra role in the movie. So, it's kind of he's a gangster type guy, and, she says, I'm reading this book about psychology, and he says, you got that? And, it's a very whimsical character. So then a few years later, I get a phone call from a director who calls me and says, hey, I'm putting up Guys and Dolls. And I said, oh yeah, great. And she says, I want you for the grandfather.
Oops.
Oh, okay. Well, long story short, the same thing happened with West Side Story. When I was in college and when I did Action, which was one of the Jets. And then a few years later, I got a call from a director. I'm doing West Side Story. Oh, I want you for the old guy that runs the soda shop. Ah. This is one of the ways that life and your profession tell you the things you need to know. You're no longer an ingenue. And it's odd because a lot of older actors don't have a clue. They don't have a clue of what their type is. They want to play the little boy and the little girl, the little lovers, and they haven't looked at a mirror lately.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm going through that with my agent right now.
You have to know and you have to embrace your image, and your image is going to change over time. What you can do, you can't play what you used to play. And it's very hard to give that up at first. But it's very freeing, and it's very just helpful.
Yeah.
You know, to say to yourself, this is who you are now. So embrace it. You know, go with it. And so, yeah, I would say go with the flow. Don't let the little things get you down. And, you know, you just have to kind of be open you just have to be there for the lessons.
Yeah. I will tell you this, and I know this is going to sound ridiculous to everybody.
No.
And everybody's going to say,
What?
like, could you be that naive? Yes, I was that naive. I have forever, since I started my career, pretty much played the immigrant, the day laborer. I've played a fruit vendor 5 times in 5 different years. Yeah. And in the first 3, it was the same cap I wore in this project. So there are 2. There's a movie, a TV show, and a student film out there.
Yes.
Where I am wearing the
same cap.
And I look the same. You could take them all 3 snits, like little pits, and make one big scene out of it. And then the other 2, they gave me the outfit, so I'm not wearing the...
Now, are you still doing that, though? Are you still do you feel you're as typecast now as you felt then?
Oh, totally. But here's where I thought I was going to be in this rebirth. I became a U.S. citizen last year, finally.
Congratulations.
After 40-some years of being a resident. May 23rd, 2018, I became a citizen. Somewhere in my actor brain, I thought, well, I'm American now. I should hand these characters over to somebody new. Like, somebody else should be playing the Mexican guy. I don't have to anymore. So I had these headshots made where I looked like a professor and the dad, and Sunday morning grabbing the paper, and my agent looked at me and goes, "You look wonderful. They're awesome." Because this is a photographer I've worked with several times. He's like, he did a great job again. I don't know how much of this I can use. I'm like, but I just turned 48, which in Hollywood, I'm still in my 30s. But I'm like, but I look like a dad. I even had my hairstylist leave the grays, so I look older. He's like, no. He's like, can you get some headshots with like a sombrero or a cap, or like you're just like waking up to go to work? And I'm like, so basically you want me to be a Mexican again? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, damn it. But I really, really thought, like, new me, new characters. Nope, it didn't work out that way. So, yeah.
Does that upset you?
Yes. It does too, in a way, because I want, and I know that I can do something different. It's also struck a little fire in my ass that I'm writing my own scripts, where my character is representing my age, my stories, my history. So there's bits about my life in there. They're not all biographical, but they have little bits of me in there that I can actually play them and go, okay, this is a real first generation Hispanic. Like, I could do that.
Well, I know that I was with a theater company for a long, long time, 3 years, which isn't that long, but I did like 9 shows for them, and I couldn't get out of the ensemble ranks. I mean, I would audition for character roles, and they wouldn't give them to me. You know, for whatever reason, because I came in as a very fresh kid in my 20s, and they basically saw me as, you know, that guy third from the right in the crowd scene. And, you know, I would audition for roles, you know, trying to gradually step up. I wasn't trying to audition for leads. I was trying to audition for character roles. And I didn't get them. And so I left that company, you know, and I went somewhere else where they saw me differently.
Yeah.
And then they were able to cast me better, more in keeping with what I wanted to do at that time in my career. You know, now, as I say, you know, we want you for the grandfather. Well, I've played that grandfather 3 times. And in the South Bay and Riverside and Orange County, I've played that role 3 times, made good money. And then the guy in the soda shop in West Side Story played that role 3 times.
Wow.
And usually they rent the same costume each time. So just like you and the Cap, you look at one picture and then this picture and you look exactly the same. Because I did it sort of in the clump of about 2 or 3 years. And it's just, as I say, you kind of have to embrace, do I resent being an old guy and being cast as an old guy? Well, not particularly. Strangely enough, the characters that I play in the murder mystery, which I do most regularly, I'm 68 and the characters that I play are like in their 50s. And I know I look older than the characters that I play. I know I do. I've been playing them a long time, for one thing. And they pair me opposite these women who are like 20-year-old, 30-year-old. And it looks like I'm robbing the cradle, for God's sake. So on a certain level, yeah, I'm getting to play somebody younger and different than myself, than what I actually am. And on the other hand, it's kind of uncomfortable. It's much more easy to play like opposite an actress somewhat closer to my age or actors somewhat closer to my age if you're doing, an actress if you're doing a love scene. And it's more comfortable.
I wouldn't mind playing those characters. I know those characters. I've lived next door to those characters. I grew up in Dallas. I know them. I think that's why they're so natural. I just wish they had more depth. I don't want to just be the fruit vendor.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah. Is a lot of times these, for example, if you look at most of these hero-heroine type roles, lots of them aren't very deep.
No.
There isn't a whole lot there.
Like, I would really love for anybody out there listening. This is my creation, so if you're going to cast it, call me. But I would love to do something like the fruit vendor therapist. You know what I mean? Like people go to the bar and the bartender listens to all the story. But like, I have this fruit cart and I park in different parts of town on different days. And people come to buy fruit, but they know me so well that they tell me their stories. And I kind of have like this spirit, a guardian angel that comes to me every day.
I could see you as that.
And we together try to make these things happen. Kind of like was it Highway to Heaven?
Yes, right.
Or what was the other movie with, what was it? The angel one. Roma Downey played it.
Yeah.
Kind of like
Galleries, Roma Downey. I can't remember the name of the piece.
But you know that I'm this cart vendor and I have a guardian angel, and between the both of us, we're trying to make miracles and wishes for people just around LA. And we just, so I'm going to write part of it. If anybody wants to collaborate on this.
Have you ever played a role, have you ever had a taste of what it is you want to do, where you got to play something like that? What did you play?
Right before I was diagnosed with cancer, the movie Callejero came out, which I worked in. We did it at the end of 13, and it came out 14, 15. I was the main character, and I meet halfway through the movie because his life is really changing. So we meet, and I become kind of like his Jiminy Cricket to him, where I'm kind of like, look, you could do this. That's the easy way out, but why don't you do this and like do something for everybody? Like,
how was that? Did you enjoy that experience?
Oh my God, I loved it. It was there. I wish I could tape some of those things again, because after everything I went through with cancer and afterwards, the emotions that I could put into the character now, wishful thinking. But people who have seen the film don't recognize me. They're like, because I changed my voice. There's a different accent, the way that I'm dressed, which the Cap The cap from the vendors.
Yes.
Is in that movie. So if you want to see it, go get Callejero.
Are you on it? Do you wear it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
If you go and see Callejero, which is it streams on Amazon and it's on the Walmart or Target Walmart. It's on the Walmart video sales. If you go and you see that cap, and actually that cap has been in like 6 different projects. Only some of them were like better known than others. After that take, I lost it.
Oh.
After that movie, it ended up somewhere in a warehouse somewhere with a bunch of stuff. And
I just think that those good projects are what see you through the not so good projects.
well, that's right now. I haven't worked on anything big post cancer, but it's like you said, I was out of the scene for a year and a half, and I'm kind of trekking back in.
They forget you.
Yeah,
because, I mean, there's new people coming into the industry all the time.
But I'm going to sit down and write the fruit vendor
I think you
story.
should. I think you should. I remember that Jack Lemmon said he was being interviewed by somebody, and he was in his trailer all day long, waiting to be called to the set. And finally, at the end of the day, somebody came and said, "You can go home, Mr. Lemmon. We're going to do it tomorrow." And the reporter said, "Isn't that upsetting that you wasted a whole day sitting in your trailer?" And he says, "No, I give them the movie for free. They pay me to sit in the trailer."
Yeah.
Which is true.
Hey. So we're getting to the end of the show now.
Good.
And are you done with me? So I'm going to ask you some of the end of the show questions.
Oh, okay.
Would you direct yourself?
I have.
Oh, you have?
Yes. I usually try to bring somebody in. I obviously I put it on video, and that helps. And then I also usually try to bring in somebody who I trust, who I can trust them to give me honest feedback about how I've done. And it wasn't necessarily because I wanted to, it's just I couldn't get another actor. I couldn't get the actor I wanted.
But if you came in as 2 different people, if
Yeah.
somebody came in to audition for you, and
Would I direct?
would you direct you if you were somebody else?
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah.
I wouldn't direct me. I'm too much. I don't like directing, first of all. I've directed, but I don't like it.
I can't see why not. I can't think of a situation whereby, strangely, I never look at anything I do right away. And then, 5-10 years later, I'll get an itch. And I'll say, I should put that DVD in and look at that. And I look at it, and I usually go, that's pretty good. I'm usually pleasantly surprised. So I don't think I would give myself too much of a hard time. I have a friend who's my best friend is my best critic. And he, being a director and a teacher, he will tell me things. I don't always take the advice, but he will give me the advice.
All right. So my next question, as a playwright, if we were giving this show a title, what title would you give it? Or this episode?
Well, I'd have to borrow A Life in the Theater, which is a play somebody wrote a long time ago. A Life in the Theater, yeah.
Life in the Theater?
Yeah. Because that's kind of what my life has been, when I look back on it.
And if you could go back to 1985 and talk to you, what would you tell you?
Well, in the words of Dan Savage, it gets better. And I'm thinking more in terms of, the whole HAV thing. We knew nothing. So, if I could come back in a dream or something like that and say to myself, you're going to get this condition, you're going to get this virus, and it's going to seem really bleak for a while, and but they will make breakthroughs and things will happen, and you'll be able to live. You'll be able to live. You'll be able to do work. You'll be able to have a good life. You'll be able to have fun. You'll have all that stuff. I think it would have been nice to have that reassurance. Mm-hmm. It would have been nice to be told and you kind of know it in your head, but it would have been nice to be told there'll be a light at the end of the tunnel. So
speaking of lights at the end of tunnels, I do a lot of HIV education, and I'm working on some national campaigns and hopefully international campaigns. There are still young people being diagnosed. And there are countries where people don't have the information or access to information, which shocks me every time I hear that. And even here in the States, Atlanta has been placed on the same list as third world countries as far as new infections are concerned. So we're not done yet by all means. Somebody newly diagnosed who was you in 85 and me in 2000, what would you tell them?
Well, don't despair if it's possible. I understand that despairing is normal, and it's part of the whole, the stages of grief and all that, because you're not dying, but you're losing you're losing a version of yourself in your head, that healthy version of yourself, in that invincible version of yourself, and that youthful version of yourself is going away, and you're going to have to make some psychological adjustments. And I would definitely say, get a doctor you trust, get in a program you trust, take your meds, do what you're supposed to do all the things they tell you to do to improve your health, and get a support group. Get into a support group. Get into a group of people dealing with the same thing you're dealing with on a regular basis. And it doesn't have to be a big support group, just a support group. Okay. That's what I would say.
Cool. Thank you. One of the things about doing the show, I'm going into my 7th year, over 200 guests.
Mercy.
And for the most part, I learned something new from every guest, and that's why they come on my show. I hear their stories or stalk them online, and I'm like, I want to hear your story. Case in point. I was really, really, again, one of my naive moments. I was like, we're going to talk theater, we're going to talk acting, we're going to talk a career. I was not going to bring HIV up unless you did. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me share.
Working in campaigns and teaching kids, and I sometimes get stuck. I feel like I'm 18 years in, and I feel like I'm lost sometimes. And then you come and sit on my couch, and I'm like, gee, Garza, like you really have no clue about it. But
well, I think everybody's different.
Yeah. Oh, no, and I totally live by that. But every once in a while, you need to get grounded a little bit, and unbeknownst to you, you grounded me a little bit.
Well, good.
In the HIV realm, I feel sometimes like I'm doing too much and nobody's listening, and how dare they? and then I forget that other people have a story to share. And thank you for being on the show and for being comfortable enough to share it. Really
sure, my pleasure.
Thank you. Pardon me, guys. For everybody out there, we've been talking to Mr. Bob May. Again, what I was expecting to be all about actors and acting and producing, and turned out to be a really interesting life story, which is what Put It Together is supposed to be. This is definitely one of the best Put It Together stories that I've heard in a long time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I want to thank my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, where you can find all the shows on the network. I'll make sure if you're listening to this, make sure you check us out on YouTube, where you'll find the video to Bob's episode. I hope it inspired you guys as much as it has me. For now, and thank you, Bob, for being on the show.
Thank you.
For now, I want to thank y'all. This is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
This is how I put it together.
This is how I put it together.
This is how I put it together.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.